Are you resetting your fantasy squad? Don't want the rebuild tag, but kind of sort of aren't winning with your current crew? This episode is for you. It's time for Dingers.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats, what's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement, check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see, what's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head, please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers, ain't no minor league, this is major, yeah. Dingers, let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just Luis Castillo that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs, joined as always by Robbie Baseball from the Murder Room. Robbie, how are we doing this evening?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. And how are you today?
I'm tired. Newborn dad, tired, right? Like it's busy, but we're getting there. A little bit of
remember that time. My wife just took care of everything, and I worked when we had our restaurant. So
yeah, I'm feeling that, but also the fatherly moments a little bit right now. Just the oldest one is actually not sleeping, so that's the headache. Is the newborn's great? She's just sleeps and eats, right? But the older one is just kind of growing, so it comes with things. But speaking of growing, some teams are not always growing. Today, we're going to talk about rebuilding.
Speaking of growing, some teams aren't.
That's a top shelf segue right there.
All right. I shouldn't complain. Like I, of all people, shouldn't complain about anything.
Segues are kind of our bread and butter. So let's just leave it there. But I think we're going through our opening list here, Robbie. The next one on the list is to say hello.
Yeah.
So I think we can check that off.
I love that I'm clicking it off now too. This is great.
Yeah. Rob figured out how to make check marks on our document, and now he's just like, I am organized.
Yeah. The pinnacle of organization.
And next on the list appropriately is
a long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
Not my best work. And how about a float thing?
It's not crown float, but it's not. I'm sad. So we were going to record a couple days ago, and I said to my wife, "Good thing we didn't record tonight because I don't have any beer." And then I didn't go get any, so I'm actually having a Summersby. Thank you. It's a flavored cider for anyone who doesn't know. 100% Canadian apples. It says, that's not a great sign when it just says apples.
Sir, I'm gonna need to see your ID.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't care. I've never had one as far as I know, and I just said to my wife, well, I'm gonna have this blackberry one. So it's blackberry apple cider, whatever. What's the percentage? 4.5. I'm gonna need a couple, but that's okay. I want to go to the store, but I also don't want to take the time to go to the store because I got stuff to do, and it's not open at 8 a.m. when I drop my kid off at school. So I can't go then. And then, the day gets away like it does for all of us.
Absolutely.
So I'll do the Twitter mentions real quick here. So we've got the podcast. Of course, you can always find us, ask us your questions. If you've got a team that resembles what we're talking about tonight, you've got players, you've got pieces that you like, but you don't have enough to win. For whatever reason, your team is getting worse. You're falling further back in the standings. If it's Roto, you're just not making up ground where you wanted to. Hit us up at Dingers Pod and say, hey, this is my roster. Screenshot it. We'll take that now. We are at that point in the year where we're willing to look at your depth and let you know what we think. And if you want to hit up Ty, you can always find him at Tourney Boss. If you're going to ask Ty about a pitcher or something to that degree, do yourself a favor as well as him and have a link ready from YouTube or somewhere where they're pitching, so Ty can, give a quick scouting review on what he sees without just staring at stats. And if you want to go kind of a statistical route, you can always hit me up at Robbie Baseball 1. Not that I am a statistics guru. However, I like to go through things that we don't mention on the podcast in preparation for the podcast. So, privately, I can help you that way. And as well, you can hit up robbiebaseball.com and check out little articles and blogs, especially a review basically of this podcast tonight is out there right now that you can go and check out. While you listen, you'll get more detail here than on that particular post on the website, but there's lots of information out there for you. There's lots of places to get it. We just do it the best. So that said, let's move into hot news, Ty. I've tried to shorten it up for us for a few reasons. One, it gets outdated so darn quick these days. But two, it's also not everything that fantasy owners are looking to react to. But the previous hot news was that Lance Lynn's back. He did pitch 4 1/3 innings in the debut. Probably will pitch before the weekend. I can't remember when he pitched last week, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Kyle Lewis still out, Seattle outfielder. They could use him back. And it's unfortunate, but Taylor Trammell is doing his best league average player impersonation. Hopefully he can keep it up and maybe become a major leaguer at this point. That'd be nice. Jared,
just before we go too far, did you see Lance Lynn's, review of the fight that he had with the third base coach in the dugout?
No, I did not. No.
So Lance Lynn got into a pretty heated verbal spat with third base coach Joe McEwing, and his post game interview. What were you guys arguing about? He said, well, he kept telling me that the filet is better than the ribeye. I'm more of a ribeye and potatoes guy.
I like this.
And so then he kind of said he just basically told him to go back to coaching third base at the end of that argument, which is just hilarious.
Yeah, that's perfect for baseball.
There is some video. There is some video out there, and Lance Lynn has certainly not skipped on the fatty meats in his lifetime. He is a thick damn boy. So definitely probably an expert in the conversation.
Yeah, he looks like the kind of guy who understands how a good piece of beef is supposed to taste for himself, because he's definitely put it in the body here. Jared Koenig is the next guy up with Oakland. He had 2 starts since we mentioned it on the last pod. He's 0-2, has an 11 ERA, 6 strikeouts in only 8 innings. I had higher hopes, of course. We always do when somebody comes up. We want them to blow us away. But hopefully he gets another shot and Oakland sucks less and maybe puts up 6 runs for him. Gives him that cushion so he can just concentrate on throwing strikes and being a major league pitcher. Willie Calhoun, Ty, surprisingly, did clear waivers, was sent down. I don't get it. I don't know if we actually talked about this on the last one or if I just did that update as soon as I saw it and put it in. Yeah. I don't see why someone didn't take him. Now, I will say, Yu Chang, who got picked up by Pittsburgh and then was 0-9 or whatever it was, doing terribly. He has not at all turned it around, but he is still in the lineup and he has had a few hits here and there. So maybe Pittsburgh was just kind of tapped out on, these types of guys that they, I don't know why. Well, I think
Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh is going to have a 40-man crunch here. So that's probably why they didn't do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams in 40-man crunch because the Rule 5 didn't happen this year. Right. So you have some of that going on, but Calhoun just has too much upside. There's guys on 40-man rosters that if Calhoun's switching organizations, he's worth the risk on, right? You can't tell me some of the guys that are being brought up, like Yarrow Munoz in Philly, you can't tell me having the possibility of the upside of Willie Calhoun in that Philly outfield is a comparable to Yarrow Munoz, who's never been able to have more than a 4-week stretch of really good baseball, right? So, I think that's, one of the things that I was confused by. I'm just shocked there was absolutely no one. That just, to me, doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it just seems like maybe that was just one of those rare occurrences where no team at that particular point in time was willing to make that play. And maybe that's just luck of the draw. If he was put on today, he'd get picked up. The final guy here from the previous hot news is Travis Swaggerty, who was promoted. It has not gone well. Also in Pittsburgh, one hit in 9 at-bats to this point in time. So new hot news here. Ozzie Albies is out till possibly September, possibly might not come back. I don't know. If we're in redraft mode, I think you drop him. I understand idea behind not wanting to give up somebody who could really provide a ton of value. That comes down to your IL situation. If you're an NFBC player, I don't necessarily see the positive in having Ozzy Albies on your bench if you can go out in the meantime and find suitable replacements for your middle infield and second base position. You know, I don't know who I can tell you to go get today that's like gonna take a lot of at bats, because there's another dude on here who we're gonna mention that's out. But I don't know, Ty, is there anyone that you can think of off the top here? Like, you know, Luis Garcia certainly deserves all the love we can give him. Washington, former top 100 prospect who was then like shunned off the list 2 years ago.
I think
He's
a
back.
guy that, and it's going to be a bit of a homer one, but like I've been watching Kevin Biggio look like he might possibly, and I say this with bated breath because we've been fooled before.
Yep.
But he looks like he's actually trying to hit now, which is a difference for Kevin Biggio. He just went up there trying to walk. It looks like he's trying to hit. He could be available in a lot of leagues because he's slowly doing the 1-for-3 with a walk thing, right? But doubles, triples, he's yet to really pop one out of the yard, but I think it's going to come. The swing is significantly flatter. Like that's the thing for me. Like when Biggio started his trajectory to the rock bottom, very much an uppercut swing, and he's just not a good enough hitter. Swing's a lot flatter now. I think he could be in a real positive scenario. If you're out a guy like Albies, he might be a pretty good fit given what's on the wire.
All right, and we know that he can provide pop if he is rolling. Rookie of the year candidate Jeremy Pena with Houston hit the IL with a sore thumb or thumb discomfort, something like that. We need a little bit more of a diagnosis to make things official, but that's unfortunate. And JJ Machovic got the call up for Houston to fill Pena's roster spot, but he is not a shortstop, second base guy. He's a corner infielder, outfielder type masher at AAA. We mentioned him the first time he got called up. He only got 5 at bats. Maybe this one will be longer. I don't know who on Houston outside of Aletmius Diaz is going to take over more playing time. So there could be a lot of movement coming on that Houston roster now.
Bregman could be a guy, right? We also, I'm just going to say it because anytime I get a chance to mention Shea Whitcomb, I'm going to. Maybe we see Shea Whitcomb.
He's not even a AAA, is he?
No, I don't think so.
I was going to say, we'll have to make sure.
I had a chance to get him in, but I just had to.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to make sure that whenever we cover the level he's at, that he gets a fair shake. Yeah, okay. So he's a future episode. Tonight we're going to be talking AAA guys, you know, on the cusp players who aren't on the list. But we're not done talking about the hot news of the day. Hyun-Jin Ryu with Toronto, elbow surgery done for 2022. He has 1 more year left with Toronto. So as far as your dynasty to keep forevers go, don't drop him yet. There could be some value with the offseason. There could be some value with a quick bounce back next year, something like that.
Can I throw a trade idea at you really quick, just on Ryu? Because obviously Toronto needs to address the rotation right now. There could be a money swap here with Cincinnati, and you could see a Votto, Castillo, Ryu like centered package where Ryu obviously has to be a money dump, gives 1 year of money versus the multiple years of money that Castillo and Votto have, right? Could be an interesting trade, like at its core. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We don't like, I'm just as a starting point, like there could be something there.
Well, in a future podcast, because we don't like to address a whole lot of rumors, it brings up a lot of possibilities for Toronto legitimately requiring a playoff starter. That's another thing.
I don't think I think 100%, and then I'll drop it there.
Yeah, because we know right now they're just going to roll with Stripling, and then we'll see what happens. So if you're a fantasy owner out there, quick little tidbit for you: Ross Stripling is now going to play, and if you are going to take Christian Javier or Ross Stripling, right now the tourney boss is telling you, thanks to his home league drop of Christian Javier, that he's taking the strip. He's going for Stripling. So
I also, just for context, desperately needed a Sunday start.
No context needed.
Well, small league, Javier needed to be the guy just because he was the guy. My pitching's pretty good. So
it's a 14-team league, but there's no middle or corner infield positions, but you get the idea on the format. Otherwise, head to head, 8x8. Ty adjusts stats on Sunday if he's losing, and then ends up winning on Monday.
Still bitter.
Podcast for another day. Mickey Moniak was demoted. Ty, you kind of alluded to it earlier with Munoz getting the promotion in Philly. So Moniak going back to AAA. Let's just hope he does the Luis Garcia, right? Everybody's kind of done with him now. let's hope he goes back and just becomes that professional hitter, and then we could see him up maybe later in the year, maybe as a trade, blah blah blah. You know the deal. And then this is just an FYI hot news for everybody. Cincinnati's prospect shortstop, Jose Barrio, who people loved to underrate. And I'm sure he's off the list now. He could have qualified for this, but he just hasn't had spring training yet. He finished his rehab assignment, was activated, and then sent to AAA. Brandon Drury, is playing really well with Cincinnati. If and when he's traded, I'm hoping that's the time that we get to see Barrio take a roster spot, ideally take over shortstop, and then boom, there we have it. And sorry, Ty, I did skip one other thing, and it's an important one. Liam Hendricks with the White Sox has hit the IL. What's going to happen in White Sox land?
Well, forearm flexor, like that could be a big time no good situation.
Well put
for the White Sox. Yep. Yeah, very, very technical. But yeah, so it's a scenario that we'll keep an eye on moving forward. But I think, Robbie, are we going through our guys that need a new organization this evening, or are we skipping that section here?
No, I think we don't need to beat the guys that we've said over and over again, just because we've said them over and over. But just so everyone knows, Kendall Graveman did sign after closing last year for both Houston and Oakland. He is next man up here for the White Sox. Joe Kelly, don't forget. And then Ty, I'm sure you would think Reynaldo Lopez has a shot. And I'm just very quick. I haven't done this in so long. It's kind of fun to look at it. Fangraphs has roster resource page. So rosterresource.com just ends up bringing you to Fangraphs. But they have like the closers, and then they have like the 7th inning dudes, it says now, and then mids and then long relievers. It's kind of funny to look at it, though, because it's the thing that we used to joke about, how it changes. Before, in the offseason, Michael Brantley was a Blue Jay without ever signing there because they were just they wanted to be on top of it so quickly, and they just threw him in at the 2-hole or something, and it's kind of comical. But anyway, you got to be careful with roster resource if you're just going straight off that. Look and see what's happened on the box score the last few times out. That's the safe play.
Just there's 2 arms there that are still interesting. Like Joe Kelly obviously could maybe fill that role a little bit as well. Like for me, I think the risk with Graveman is the injury risk, right? Like I think he's there, but like Graveman just doesn't have the longevity to give you big time outs for the entire season. So like, even if he's the like theoretical main go-to guy, I just don't think he can consume all of those innings. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of my thoughts there.
Okay. Yeah. And for the onto the players who need a new organization, we talked about Montas before, because we're basically just waiting for the trade. And then Luis Castillo is the new name added to the list. Same exact thing with Cincinnati. It makes no sense to hold anybody with talent right now that has less than, 3 years of control for them. So that's another new name on. But now we can get on to the main event here, which is rebuilding, retooling targets close to the show, but not on the list. Now, caveat I got to say off the top here, when I did this, I did get a few guys who are on just even like MLB.com's top 100, because that's not at all fantasy related, but as we've talked about before, it's a list people go off. We've got a co-commissioner in our big money league, and he constantly references it. He's like, I will trade this player for 2 guys on this list, and it's MLB.com's list, in addition to, or an equivalent outfielder, or and it's just we see it. That's what I'm getting at here, people. We see it, so we're putting that off to you as well, because trading can be very difficult, and finding proper value can be very difficult. But here are a bunch of guys who are undervalued, and the only exception might be the very first guy up here. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Ty.
Yeah, I mean, Ivan Herrera is a guy, Robbie, that you actually got me onto years ago now. And you've kind of went quiet on him, whereas I'm kind of turning up the heat, which for me as a catcher prospect is usually how I do it. I don't really care about them until they get to AA or AAA. Herrera is a guy that's moving up my board extremely fast. The OPS big jump this year. We haven't really seen it this high since his age 18 season, which he spent the majority of at rookie ball. 848 so far this year, 3 bombs. He spent, a couple of games on the bench this year while Molina was out for a couple of games. But there's a real hit tool here. I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot more than 20 bombs at the pro level, but I think there is a 280 bat here that is potentially there. And I'm not saying that it's a home run guy, but very much the guy that I like to like, which is give me that constant bat. Give me the guy I know is going to be there that I don't have to overpay for. That's just kind of that middle of the road. So while everybody's going for your Francisco Alvarez, I'm good with Ivan Herrera, Robbie, for the cost of acquisition. And I think given the fact that we've seen Moreno and Adley Rutschman, and we know Alvarez is coming, and
and AJ Melendez.
Yep,
Melendez. MJ Melendez.
MJ is awesome. I love watching his swing. But for me, the price of acquiring Herrera is just so much cheaper.
Yes.
So that's why I think he's important to be on this list, and he's a fringe 100 guy because he's also a pretty good defensive catcher. So keep in mind, most catchers are bumped because of their defensive ability. This is one that probably fits that category. So don't buy him expecting 30, 40 home runs. You're just never, ever going to see that, but safe, especially in your deeper leagues.
And rostered in only 13% of Fantrax leagues, which we'll reference Fantrax tonight. Both you and I have a share of him in 2 different Dynasty leagues. I've got him in the Dingers Listener League, and you've got him in the Dynasty League, one of the 24-team 8x8 leagues that we play in. Moving on to the next guy who we've mentioned on the pod before briefly, but it's somebody who is just getting it done. And these are the kind of targets that you might want to be able to pick up in season, not necessarily somebody you're going to trade for because they're not on a roster elsewhere. And that's David McKinnon, Los Angeles Angels, 27-year-old first base, possible outfielder as well. It's kind of funny. The more you look into some of these players, the more you're going to see that 2 years ago they played, this position, and last year they switched and did, blah, blah, blah. There's just more information the deeper you dive, but he's murdering AAA. And with the manager change, I wonder if they might be inclined to move some players around. And I think at age 27, he at least deserves a shot at a pro, at our MLB time this year. We've seen it before where some MLB free agents are released so that they can try to catch on somewhere, or they come back to the organization. If he was if there was a Rule 5 draft, he easily could have been one of those types of guys that somebody took to just give a shot in April and then he takes off. But he's a 300 hitter in pro ball. And this is the first year that he's had a big power surge. So the lightning in a bottle thing could absolutely be here for McKinnon.
Yeah, I love those sort of guys, the late power stroke. But, I mean, if he could throw an inning out of the pen, he'd have a spot on that LA roster for sure.
Absolutely.
But next on the list, I think, is one of the guys on this list that you've probably heard a lot about recently. And Rob gave me this one because I would be a journey for him to pronounce this one. But it's Vinny Pasquantino, whatever that guy's name is in Kansas City. Someone hit us with like a how to break that down. Pasquantino. I'm sure there's somebody out there. Pasquantino.
I don't know.
Pasquantino. Vinny P.
I was going to say, you know who he is. The 24-year-old AAA guy on the cusp. We've mentioned him before because we look at these dudes, but all of a sudden,
can we just call him the VP?
The VP, sure.
I think that's appropriate.
The VP of KC. There we go. Let's drive it into the ground.
Yeah, the VP of SWAT.
SWAT.
Basically, this is a power bat, right? I mean, that's what this is. I think there's some swing and miss risk here at the pro level. I think this is what, to me, Robbie, like what I'm worried about here is I see this as a kind of guy that comes up and then hits the higher levels, and then all of a sudden, doesn't meet those lofty expectations of hit tool, right? That's my concern with this bat. Like I think there's a hitter here. I do. I think the upside is there. I am concerned about the contact rate once he makes the jump, because right now he's got 17 bombs in AAA, he's 997 OPS. The strikeouts are intact, right? 33 strikeouts in 208 at bats. So that's a pretty good number, basically 15%. So we can live with that, right? I am concerned there's going to be a jump at the next level. So that's the big thing here. The career numbers are good. This is a college bat, 11th pick out of Old Dominion. Could be
11th round. 11th round pick.
What I say?
11th pick.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for the correction. But at Old Dominion, so college bat, we like college bats, right? Oh, here it is. Thank you, Baseball Reference. Pasquantino. We probably could have got that.
Yeah.
but not for anyone that needed the pronunciation. You're welcome.
I think that's what you said. I think that's what you said.
Something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the one thing here, like 31 walks, right? In that same 208
Mwah.
at bat. So Robbie's all over this. So
15% walk rate,
with,
please.
if you're in a league with Rob, he owns him. So just
I don't have
Zero.
one. I don't have one
Oof.
share of him. And
This must hurt you.
before, well, see, here's the thing. I know some of the guys that are in dynasty leagues with me who are uber competitive. Go on my website and look at things, and occasionally they will troll me. Of course, Roto Ronnie does it. He's everyone's favorite troll. But I'm talking about some competitive guys. And one of them said something after I posted about a bunch of guys at AAA, a mid-May kind of all-star thing I posted up. And he's like, I have 3 of those guys. Like, you know, will you give me Daniel Espino and something else for? I'm like, no. The whole point is that they're like kind of flyer types. They're not like the born and bred, you know, high caliber, highfalutin, big signing bonus dudes. But
if Ronnie ever put that much effort into winning, he could probably actually win.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll have to see. He's been surprisingly good in the 130-team points league. I shouldn't say surprisingly. He's got I don't know if he's got Goldie or he's got Arenado, who's been having a heck of a year, and it's for points league formats too, really like lighting it up. But anyway, just to stay on topic here, those are a couple first base options. Rest of the way, we really only have, you know, single, like second base. I picked Nick Maton, who's somebody who's been up and down the last 2 years. 240-ish average at AAA, but an 800 OPS, lots of doubles, 5 dingers on the year. He's been up and down twice already with the Phillies. He's currently hurt, but everybody in Philly is thinking Bryson Stott. You know, he's getting it done. Didi getting it done. You know, having a return to prominence year. And Maton can just be a pro now. That's entirely possible. He could be an MLB pro guy who could be in the 400 at bat range if he's able to do what he's done prior to the injury. Might be the last man on the roster for the rest of this year, so he comes up and down. If he gets traded, that'd be great too. You know, because the fear is that Philly will go sign a big money guy every year at every position. So if you see a trade to Colorado, you know, go crazy and get him, because Jose Iglesias is hitting over 300 tie, and that's all he's doing. But he's still doing at least that, right? He's providing something. Give a Nick Maton who could provide you with some more. I'd be very happy with that. But
yeah,
even as a Philly, just as a Philly.
And we talked about second base in the offseason being such a terrible, you know, black hole in the fantasy world, right? Like there's a couple high-end guys that we all kind of know about, like the Gormans and the Gonzalez and, you know, some other guys that we'll maybe touch on a little bit later. But, you know, one guy that, Robbie, I know you and I are both well aware of, and I think could fit into what I mentioned in the Ryu conversation. Like Otto Lopez is a guy in Toronto, and I only mention him because there's not a ton of second base prospects at the AAA level that are actually probably potential AAA bats. Like Otto Lopez is not going to play for the Jays unless there's a series of injuries. But why I mention him is he's the kind of guy that I talk about a lot that could end up on someone else's roster and end up with at bats this season, right? So like that is one guy that I think is potentially on the move, and another guy in the same division could fit that same category. Xavier Edwards, the notorious slapdick prospect that was acquired in the previous years by Tampa Bay, could also be that kind of guy that has zero chance on Tampa Bay, but could find himself some at bats elsewhere. So those two guys, I just wanted to toss in there, Robbie, because they're not like notable guys, but could be guys.
And now I would say would be the time, if you're interested at all in Lopez, to buy. You have to look back at what he did in 2021, because this year's everything's been career worst at the moment. Yeah. But you know, as we say all the time, there's lots of season left. So at AAA, I don't even think he's got 200 at bats yet. I just had a very quick look. Not even close. 126 at bats, and he's batting 198. So he's well below his career averages of 300 batting average. Like he's 100 points lower in batting average in OBP and slug. He's like 130 below. So there's a ton of room for Lopez to get hot in the second half. And he did have that one MLB at bat last year. One. That's terrible for him. Poor guy. But the next guy is also in Buffalo. He's a Blue Jay guy. So let's finish up the homer out segment, Ty. Let me give you the speedster.
Yeah, I mean, Samad Taylor is a guy that more of your kind of guy, Robbie. Like this is there's a player here I see him as the kind of guy that flips between the second base center field kind of role, right?
Okay.
I see him more of a great bench bat. Like, I think that's who he is. I don't see Samad Taylor as an everyday starter. I see him as a guy, like, if you're in a 30 teamer and you want a guy that could potentially be like a later, like, I don't know, Lamont Wade Jr. type, like kind of guy that has a very specific role that gives you a couple positions. Like, I
Particular
could
set
see
of
some,
skills, a
Yeah.
particular set of skills guy.
Exactly. Like, I mean, Samad Taylor, I think, could be that guy because, you know, he's not going to have the power that a Lamont Wade Jr. has. He doesn't have zero power, but
Right.
speed is definitely his calling card. No questions about that. So give me a little possession or position flex and some stolen bases. I'm listening, right? In
Yeah.
a deep format.
I mean, career high 44 stolen bases for him in 18. And then this year he already has 22. And that's regular playing time. And I forget, it's not D Gordon. Who's the speedster that Toronto has? The outfielder. Oh my goodness.
The Jays?
Yeah, he's in Buffalo, but he's like everybody loved him for stealing bases years ago. Anyway, his name when it comes up will be fine. He's always just been Gerard Dyson, maybe. I don't know. Whoever it is that's down
there.
there.
It's Gerard Dyson. You're right. Yep.
I think that's possibly helping to maybe make him a bit better around the base pass. He's got 5 dingers as well. So again, like you said, Ty, I think that's a perfect way to say it. If you're in a big league, Samad Taylor is somebody who you could kind of pencil in that he'll be able to help you at some point in time. I think it's safer to say 2023 than 2022. But again, we have no idea what Toronto's going to do. And with Ryu gone, there could be some movement with some of these types of guys. You know, we saw them deal Kevin Smith in order to get themselves somebody that they could sign to a long-term deal. Maybe somebody else is looking for Taylor. So the next one up, I got to thank on Twitter. I put this out on RobbieBaseball.com and I said, I got to be honest, I couldn't find a third baseman that wasn't highly ranked that I thought was interesting at AAA. And I mean, I looked, and somebody said Buddy Kennedy with Arizona. And I said, all right, sure, dude, I'll look. And I looked and I said, thank you. This is great. I love this. I did the deep dive on him. 23-year-old right-handed bat, fifth round pick in 2017. So he was a high school guy. And Ty, you and I were talking about this before we started recording. At what point do people no longer care about high school drafted guys who sign? Like, at what point in the draft? Is it once they're post 70, top 75? Because sometimes you'll get the guys who sign really, really late as a high school guy because something fell through. That's how Rowdy Tellez ended up signing with Toronto when he was a 30th round pick or something. But that's like needle in a haystack. Buddy Kennedy was in the 5th round. So he was somewhere in the 120 to 150-ish range, something like that. He's been slow and steady, but he's been promoted every year and doing well with it. He didn't have pro ball in 2020 as so many of them did. Went to the AFL last year and was perfectly fine, but he didn't stand out. So even when we did our AFL breakdown, we skip over a Buddy Kennedy because we don't see a great stat line, and we look at what he's done at A and AA, and we're like, yeah, he's fine. He's a good hitter, like average hitter. But I mean, this is a 300 career average pro, 400 career OBP, and a 430-ish slug, which is fine. All of that's fine. But Ty, you believe that there's a future, not currently at AAA, Arizona Diamondback prospect to mention here, but maybe there's a window of opportunity for Buddy Kennedy to come up in the meantime and get some play.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, Buddy Kennedy's not a guy that was a household name until we just mentioned him. Now he's going to be famous, but,
you're welcome, name. Buddy. You're welcome.
Yeah, great name. I mean, worst case, this guy's dominating a slow pitch league somewhere. It's a perfect name for the
what's the beanbag tossing game? The beanbag cornhole?
Cornhole.
I think he's a future cornhole champion. At worst.
Yeah, I would agree at worst. I think the trajectory here still could be positive. There's certainly runway on either corner in Arizona, right? Like, we don't have anybody that's stealing either of those positions and locking them down, right? Like, AJ Vukovic is the guy you're mentioning, could be the guy of the future that we'll talk about later. But, like, you've got Seth Beer, who's going to have to probably play first.
That's what I was just going to say. Do you remember when Seth Beer was awesome in April for 10 days?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then you got to play 162 games, not 10.
Well,
so
exactly. And then he drank all the beer and now he's Buddy Kennedy. And so, at the end of the day, like, there's room for Buddy Kennedy on either corner because Seth Beer was supposed to be a guy that was filling one of those spots and
Yeah.
forcing Arizona's hand, and he just hasn't done that. So enter Buddy Kennedy, right? Like that's it. And so I like this as a tip. I think he's going to see some at bats this year. I really do. I think that's possible.
Yeah, from what we've seen, I think this is his first taste of AAA. It's been a success, which is hard to say for a lot of guys. And when we break down a AA group that's like this, the not on top 100 list guys, you're going to hear a repeating story of players that are repeating AA, and now they're getting it right, the second time around. So for him to come up in his first full season and to be successful, that's saying something, and that's promising. So, but Ty, you mentioned Vukovic as a next dude up. Now here's a prospect fatigue guy, 100%, former J2 guy with the Yankees, Estevan Florial, who's been up and down the past couple years. What's up, Ty?
Hello, is it me you're looking for?
I mean, for obvious reasons here, right? This was a can't miss guy. Like I want to say 4 years ago.
For sure. 2018 was his, everybody needs to know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, let's look at what 2018 was. 2018 was 283, 6 bombs, 16 stolen bases, right? I mean, it's not what he's going to be, but there's still a guy here. He's got 20, listen to that, 20 home runs at AAA right now. So who knew that? Right? Did you know that? Put your hand up. Right.
Sorry, I was trying to be fun and exciting, but my allergies are getting the best of me here. So I was trying to hit the mute button and I failed. But
so right now, Robbie,
hell of a year.
Estevan Florial, 20 bombs, 17 stolen bases. Yeah. There's lots of room in that outfield in New York, right?
Well, you'd think, you would think that they would find room, but this podcast in particular focuses on some teams' failures with their outfielders. We're mentioning a Yankee player right now. We're about to mention a Guardian player. That same organization, that organization as well has struggled to be able to give at bats. And maybe this is the perfect scenario for the trade that they didn't make with Frazier. Maybe they'll get it right and they'll make the trade for Florial this year to do whatever it is they need to do to be more competitive.
I know I did Lionel because he's my guy. But I mean, hi, my name is Frankie Montas is what Estevan Florial is going to end up being, right? I mean, I've been talking about this all off season. This is written in stone that the Yankees are going to acquire a front end starting pitcher.
I wouldn't like that. Well, seeing now Toronto's entered that party too, right? With Ryu gone, Montas, blah, blah, blah. But Oakland for prospects is only good for playing time. It certainly isn't good if you're not a big power bat. Like you need that raw power to get the ball out. And just look at how Christian Pache is now no longer getting full-time at bats with the return of cheater Ramon Laureano. They've got Christian Betancourt. Like they've got what's the name? They got an
Stephen
old
Vogt?
dude. Stephen Vogt. He's up. He's playing.
Good.
Did you know, Ty? And this is what happens when I just scroll through minor league things, endlessly wasting my time. Derek Dietrich, the guns.
Yeah.
He's at AA for
just
the Yankees.
Dripping swagger.
Yeah, he is AA for the Yankees playing right now. He is holding on to pro ball by a thread. I feel like he was demoted from AAA, and now because he's crushing AA.
Yeah, but it's because you got Volpe and Oswaldo that have to take the time, right? But
yeah, that's exactly it. He just wanted to be part of the organization, right?
But just back to Vogue really quickly. Like I think he has like 8 family members and they just sit in the stands. So Oakland has as many guys that bring fans to the field as possible.
Yeah. Well, either way, it's frustrating. So what I'm saying, get to stay on point because everybody probably just wants us to do that. Florial to Oakland sucks because he doesn't have that raw power at this moment. Now, as you said, he's got 20 bombs. Right, he's 20 bombs, but they're like you've talked about before too. If we went and did the deep dive, which maybe this warrants, or maybe that's something we need to do with prospects that get traded, we need to do the deep dive.
I'm out.
Are they fence scrapers?
No, they're not 20 bombs. Because of the angle of the screen, we read the wrong column. He does have 17 stolen bases though, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, he's
but
nearing
he has,
295 average. 20,
but he has 5 home runs, so very
okay.
different. Very,
But an
and
850 OPS.
yeah, we're still seeing growth and we're still seeing power. So he's still a buy. He's just not a light tower power guy. So for those of you that have already went and picked him up, you can drop him.
Wow, if
Not
he was
drop
that
him.
red,
I kid.
if he was that readily available to you. But okay, I did wonder when you said it, but I'm like, okay, I guess I didn't write in that. I put in his average and I put, roughly stolen bases by 20 stolen bases by mid-June. Like, holy crap. Next guy up, I'm just beating the listeners over the head with him. But, after taking him from you in one of our league's Rule 5 drafts and picking him up via trade in another, I felt like I was on a roll this offseason, and I still want more Will Benson on my dynasty rosters. The 23-year-old Cleveland Guardian is at AAA, and he's doing what I actually wanted. One of the few guys who's doing good things. He's improved. Yeah, that's right. He improved his average all the way up to 235. It's still low. However, the OPS is over 825, 9 dingers right now, 13 stolen bases, and I'm liking it. I that plays in points leagues, that plays in your 5x5s, your 6x6, your 8. Your OBP is where you're needing him to be even better. But let's just look at the fact that Stephen Kwan did not play one MLB at bat and has played all season up, and he's doing fine. Oscar Gonzalez was just crushing AAA, and he got promoted, and he's still doing well at this moment in time in the show. It's recent evidence that Cleveland is giving playing time to prospects in the outfield, which is something they screwed up with Zimmer. They were screwing it up with Naquin. Now, both guys got hurt on and off. I'm not excluding that. But we also saw times when they were healthy and they were at AAA, not in Cleveland when Cleveland wasn't competing. So Will Benson hopefully will be able to either be part of a trade for something else, or someone above him will be traded, or there'll be an injury where he gets an opportunity and is able to kind of take time, possibly later this year. But I definitely think 2023 target, Will Benson, you don't want to wait on that. Especially once he's a 24-year-old and he's got, if he finishes this year with like nearly 30 bombs at AAA, if that happens, right? If he has a hot summer and he's headed into September with 23, 24 bombs, people are all of a sudden going to say, holy crap, look at this guy, if he doesn't get the promotion.
Yeah. The next guy again kind of fits very similar to the Florial kind of trajectory a little bit. It's JJ Bleday in Miami. This is a guy that everybody wanted to own out of his draft here. He's not really overachieved at any level, but he does fit my kind of post hype model that I like to chase. So this is right now. This is when I go after the JJ Bledays. I don't get them early. I don't really like to get them late. Like it's such a weird line as you have in the notes here, Robbie. High OBP, the power is still reasonable. The K rate's a touch high, right? But he's just entering the AA, AAA world, right? Like he's hitting a AAA this season. But as you drool all over, league leader in walks.
Yeah.
Huge thing. So Robbie loves these guys. Robbie rides these things to championships. But I like to buy him right now because when you do a trade with people, like most people aren't looking OBP batting average, right? But as you and I know, Robbie, it can be a pretty good indicator of future breakout because it shows patience, right? And if you add the power, the hit tool can come later. And I think Bleday's calling card was the hit tool, right? So he's getting a taste at AAA. I think he's slightly rushed to get to AAA. And I think he's going to develop that hit tool or redevelop it, maybe is a better way to say it. But these are the kind of guys that you end up with if you're smart and savvy. And you could have a guy like Nomar Mazara on your roster if you're smart about these sort of things.
No, he snuck him in there. He thought I wasn't listening. Ty thought I wasn't listening, and he snuck in Nomar.
Nomar is hitting 343 right now in the show. So
is he doing that well? I just dropped him in a 30-team league where
he's starting in
like
4 of my teams right now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel bad for you.
He's got a hit in 2 ribbies tonight. I mean, what are you
really
giving crap for? Yeah.
The only reason that I dropped him in this particular league, points league. Oh yeah, son of a bee sting. So for points, folks out there, since June 11th. No, let's go back further. June 10th. He had June 9th. He's been playing regularly since the 8th, really. 2, 4, so 6, 11, 15 points. He's averaging about 2.5 points per game, depending on your format specific. Could be a little higher. I'm being a little picky on it. I'm counting strikeouts against to hurt. But when you give a pro ball player playing time and fastballs, Ty says it a million times over, they should get hit. But we can't make this a conversation about a 27-year-old guy who's been kicked around everywhere.
I only say it
in 11% of leagues, but
I only say it because he's an example of a guy that everybody gave up on, and not that Blade is that guy, but Blade's value is certainly down from where it was 2 years ago, and I think that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and absolutely, it has continued to go down. Now, I feel like he is a guy who broke our rule and was on a top 100 list. I'm trying to see.
He definitely was. Yeah, he's definitely on top 100
because
he still will be. He has.
Yeah, I must have written this in on the website. So there's a bit more detail specifically on the website about this because I made on RobbieBaseball.com because I just made an effort to try to discuss why they were there, and I think it's because Blade was somewhere maybe in the 60s and moved
62
back.
On
62.
MLB.com.
Okay, so he was in the 50s before and moved back. And the next guy that I'm about to talk about, we're switching from hitters to pitchers here. We're going to go through and give you 5 potential starters. Cade Cavalli was in the exact same position. I think he was somewhere in the 30s, 34, and he's moved back. So that's why he's on here. 23-year-old, 6'4" righty, whose line sucks. 3-3 with a 5.16 ERA, 52 Ks. At 52 innings pitched with a 1.3 whip. Not good. But Ty, you've also mentioned the fact that sometimes at AAA, pitching coaches are working with pitchers and front offices say, stat lines be damned. We know he can do this, that, and the other, or we don't have the swinging strike rate or any of that information that we've included in this. But Cade Cavalli is still a valuable guy. The fun part is that when you do these dives, this is where you can see somebody who was once like someone's first round pick in fantasy, and you can maybe now trade for someone that was like a flyer that you picked up in your free agency or something like that. Give them an MLB piece and maybe some type of far less likely MLBer, because Cade Cavalli is going to be thrown to the wolves with Washington at some point in time. Like it will just happen, right? Like they will bring him up whether he is ready or not. And it's a matter of if he's doing those peripheral things well. The stat line doesn't look good today, but when you start to get into the X stats, which again, we try to avoid doing that on the show, you can see signs for success. So that's why he's a player to look to acquire now, because if he has a hot summer, all of a sudden his stock's going to go right back up, and then it'll be AFL, right? And then you can start to look at some of those guys that could be like those AFL studs, like, people are interested because Cade Cavalli is going to be there from Washington, and some of the other dudes we're going to mention below.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to jump ahead to Frias, Robbie, just because he's
thank you.
More of a me guy. Frias is, I talked about him a little bit in the offseason, and a couple weeks ago he came up, but this is an Arizona arm, 24-year-old fireballer is the term that Robbie has in the notes here. He's got 42 strikeouts in 25 innings, so he's had a bad time at the MLB level. He's just got to get his control under command, or his control under command, his command under control. Oh,
turn it topwise. Turn it
left,
topwise.
Left, right. But this is a guy that still has upside, right? And kind of a classic back end arm, right? There's only a handful of guys ever that have really come out and been immediate back end arms, right? And so a lot of them have this crazy volatility and sharp stuff that takes him a little while to figure out. Frias fits that. He has the stuff to be a back end arm. He's never going to be a starter at this point, not in my eyes at least.
Okay.
I think this is a back end arm only at the major league level. In the high velo, like he could touch triple digits. I think he did a couple times while he was up, and I think he will get to that 100, 101 mark over the next couple of seasons. So this is an arm to stash and in a low acquisition guy. So that's what I really like here.
Yeah, he certainly will not garner much back. Like you've got overachievers on the stat, like the fantasy stat line, in guys like Tyler Gilbert was last year and Humberto Castellanos. But those are not future guys where, like, I see him as a starter. I'm very quickly just looking here at AAA. He started 3 times, but I think they've punted that because He's got 10 games total. So not starting with Arizona. We'll see. Maybe this is the transition that makes it the right time, because he was one of those flyer guys who people were saying, you got to watch this arm, right? It's electric stuff. But, you know, at 6'3", and now he's 24 years old. It's time to, you know, he's there, right? He's at the cusp. He moved 3 levels last year from high A all the way up. And the calling card has been the strikeout. So we'll see. But
there's
next,
just not a huge amount of innings, Robbie. Like that's the flag
right,
for
the
me.
body of work.
Yeah, like I just like there's not enough consistency in the starting role for me to get excited. Like if you look at 2021, 111 innings across the 3 levels, and he's got 23 starts, right, which is reasonable. But 23 starts with 111 innings, like that's not stretching a guy out, right? So to me, Arizona knows. That's the way I see that.
Okay. Next guy up here is certainly, I mean, we've talked about him a couple times, so we'll try not to go too far into this, but is Matt Crook, or Matthew Edward Crook of the Yankees. He's a 27-year-old, but he's 6'4", lefty, 60 Ks and 48 1/3 innings pitched. He's started all year long, but 1-5 record. I think he's 1-6 now. Yeah, 1-6 record. 6.13 ERA, not great. 67 Ks now, Ty. So he had 7 Ks in his last 6 inning. There you go. Quality start. There we go on the last one. I like looking at stats while we're recording. That's great. I hope everybody enjoyed that. So the ERA got worse. So I guess it wasn't a quality start. Let me just keep thinking out loud here. But a 1.6 whip sucks. And he's free. You know, he's rostered in 0% of Fantrax League. So you don't have to acquire him as far as like making a trade or something, but you could look to maybe get him. And again, this could be one of those like Matt Aller throw in pieces in a trade where the Yankees acquire a starter and the team that they're acquiring him from is like, we need someone to fill innings. Let's give this 27-year-old guy who's never had an MLB pitch. Let's be the team that gives him that opportunity. And I think that could be where Crook finds, you know, this. And I'm not saying that I think he's going to be semi-elite guy like Ty you just referenced with Frias going to the pen. I think Crook could be a guy who could come up and get some time and then just become like a Daniel Norris lefty dude, but with the ability out of the pen to be a long guy, to maybe be a pro for 3 or 4 years. But again, it's found money depending on your format. If you're in points leagues, these kind of guys can help you all day long. You get a guy who gets you 6-7 points every time out, and he goes out twice a week. That's not really helpful. But he goes out 3 times a week. All of a sudden, he can put up more than one of your good starters can in a points format. I know it doesn't sound right, but over the course of a week, it can work. Over the course of a season, obviously, a good starter is going to crush a decent relief pitcher. But just somebody to consider in the leagues where you can pick up guys like this in season. And I will very quickly say, is it Casey Lawrence, Ty?
Yeah.
That's with Buffalo. He came up with Toronto very briefly. He's essentially the AAA ace right now. Him and Gabriel Rodriguez, and I'm not joking, are like dollar for dollar the same player. But Lawrence has been up and has pitched, I think, 70 some MLB innings. So he's not a prospect. He's also not 22 like Rodriguez. But they're both pitching very, very well. No one cares about Lawrence, and the Jays very well could have him go in some type of trade, very much like we're talking about the Yankees trading Crook. Lawrence could be one of those guys who then gets a shot down the stretch. Just consider it. Like the guy should be in any type of all-star game that they have at AAA, unless the Jays bring him up to sit and be a long guy out of the bullpen for them, like they did already once this year.
Yeah, definitely. Hunter Brown's next on the list, like maybe the fastest moving pitching prospect in the minor leagues right now. Like I think, you know, from relative obscurity in the offseason, he's kind of found himself here this year, pitching at Sugar Land in the PCL, right? So we've talked about the PCL being a hitter-friendly league. He's got a 2.52 or 2.25 ERA so far. Caper 9, 12.6, Robbie. Like I'm into that. But my concern is the 4.3 walk rate per 9. That's the thing that, you know, I mentioned in previous episodes. One of the guys in my offices knows Hunter from school. And my thing here is I don't see a soft contact pitch, Robbie. Like that's my concern for major league sustainability, right? Like what can he throw to get the weak contact that doesn't put him into Blake Snell territory, right? Like Blake Snell is very much, if you swing and miss, like that's the thing. But if you just sit there and not swing, Blake Snell's probably going to walk you. And that's my concern here with Hunter Brown. Once he gets to that pro level, the discipline that those guys have could be an issue, but the upside is so here, right? Like kind of the upside of the arm of Frias, but with a little bit more starter upside. But I would really like to see a cutter or a sinker added into the repertoire, like just something that's a little off of the fastball, the hook stuff, right? His
the
those two
curveball's
pitches
the
are
pitch.
plus. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're saying that he's got a slider and a changeup as well. But again, they're stating very clearly, as you did, Ty, command. Scouting reports are command is the issue with Brown, and it's essentially like the MLB did a mid-season or a May prospect update, and that's where Brown landed. I didn't even realize that he had landed on the list until I referenced it. And I was like, oh, come on. Why is he on the list? The guy has bad command, but he's a top 100 pitcher right now. So
insider information, he has been electric over his last handful of starts.
Yeah.
And the big adjustment that he has communicated to the guy in my office is the pitch clock. He said he really, really struggled with that to get his mindset and his routine and onto that mound and stay in his technique and his mechanics with the pitch count. He felt rushed. If he felt like it was impacting him. And if you look at the body of work, the last several starts have been good. I just think that to me, like I'm looking just a little bit past the AAA data and I'm saying, I see a problem at the major league level. Right. And that's the issue. And I'm going to stick to that one. He's going to strike guys out. Like that's a thing for sure. It's just, I think the major league hitters are going to have a little bit more success because they're going to put him into bad situations. And we all know major league hitters can do damage in those.
Absolutely. The last guy up, and this is a cheat, I admit, but I got to say, I did this before I realized that we absolutely needed to do the same thing with AA players. I snuck Logan Allen onto the list with Cleveland. That's the younger Logan Allen. He's now 23. He was drafted in 2020, I think. That part's irrelevant to this conversation. In 60 innings pitched, he's got 82 Ks and a 1.23 whip, which is okay, but that's fine. The advanced stats are also in his favor, and he's just doing well. And I think we're going to see him up. It could be any time. Tapping on the Guardian's door. The cool thing is that at 23, he should be dominating at AA, and he is. And there are other pitchers who are ranked higher than him, who are at lower levels than him, who are, he is probably the fourth, or at least, I'd say he's probably the fourth highest starting pitcher prospect in the Cleveland organization. And he's not on top 100 list, but I think he was a second round pick whenever it was that he was drafted. So he's just kind of fallen back a little bit because Cleveland's so thick with their prospects. And I think he's just somebody to look to sooner than later, because if he cleans up the whip, all of a sudden people are going to go nuts. If that ERA drops, people are going to start to really take note. But right now we're seeing a lot of fantasy stats that are looking okay, and the Ks are obviously looking elite, but you see the 1.23 whip, that's okay, but we could find 15 guys that have whips under 1. Same with guys that have ERAs under 3.5. But Logan Allen's looking good, and I believe he's also a lefty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I agree, and I like this for Cleveland. Like if he's with a different organization, I'd be a little more concerned, right? But right. I think he has the ability to figure it out in Cleveland in a way that maybe he doesn't before. And Robbie, just a really quick couple of notes on the reliever side. Like there's going to be some absolute chaos in the next 2 months of reliever world. And there's not a ton of guys to just point to right now to fill that gap. But, you look at some of the guys that have went down both at the pro level and the minor league level, like there's going to be some interesting voids to fill in the bullpens coming up here. So some teams that can make some decisions to get rid of, like David Bednar should never be traded, but Pittsburgh is going to be offered something that they're probably not going to be able to turn down, like just based on some of this stuff. So all I'm leading into is like guys like Luis Frias are possibly going to be guys that could be traded for, because they might be able to fill some bullpens. Like I'm just saying, like we're going to see some weird things this year, I think, because of the injuries we've already seen and the way starting pitching has been regressed. I'm curious. And we don't have anybody on our list in the relief role, but I do think I just wanted to flag that as like, if you're in a bad situation, go try to find some of those guys that you think could be relevant for the back half of the season. Like you could make some hay a little bit on that if you're rebuilding.
I think that's a really interesting segment. Now, I wouldn't want to dedicate a podcast to it, but a segment where we could try to notice the RPs that are coming up, like that are specifically coming up to be relief pitchers. That would be something, because it's gonna be the gas throwers, right? Like it's not gonna be 90 guys with command. It's gonna be 98s.
It's gonna be Nate Pearson, right? Like it's gonna be that type of guy, right? Like a guy, and again, there's a couple guys that have come up today that are Toronto guys, but
who's Nate Pearson?
Well, he's this like injured guy that had mono.
That can't miss.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of like, that's the kind of guy that could win you a future fantasy season, because you somehow either acquired him in a 1-for-1 and then traded him for leverage if he's hot in the second half, right? Like that's an easy example. There's going to be other guys that you could do that with. Like if you picked up Sir Anthony Dominguez like 3 months ago, you're sitting on gold right now, right? So like those are the kind of situations that you're looking for. Just, kind of as a side note here, guys that are we wanted to mention really quickly that are obvious targets for rebuilding that we're going to probably see in the near future. O'Neal Cruz is the one that everyone's begging for. I saw something, I think yesterday, just talking about his Super 2 deadline coming up here, whether it's today, tomorrow, whatever.
Oh, okay.
I think you mentioned Yu Chang earlier, and I saved it because I think that's the only reason he's still on that roster, is that they're just waiting for the development period to be over.
His defense is going to get real good this week. Real good defense.
You know what? That 6'9" shortstop has a ton he can work on, right? I think he's playing left field at this point too. But anyway, point is, O'Neal Cruz is coming. Michael Busch and or Miguel Vargas in Dodger land. Like Justin Turner is just not right. Max Muncy, who knows right now? Like he's good and bad all at the same time. But there's probably going to be one of those guys find their way. Like it looks like Gavin Lux has finally found his way,
which is awesome, right?
I agree.
We both thought for a while this is just going to be a miss, because this is what happens when people graduate prospect lists and you have like a default number one. But it's not like you get to be a notable prospect because you suck. It's that Gavin Lux took such a long road to get there. It's just nice to know that he's worked out when we've seen a lot of others. The prospect thing that lately has just been failure. So it's nice to remind people that, prospects do hit. Just, you got to be patient with them.
Well, at some point, like all the scouts in the front offices, I don't know what happened. They took a bunch of crazy pills, but like they went from the repression thing to just saying, blah, everybody go to the pros. Like, I said it all off season. Spencer Torkelson was not ready. Guess what? He's not ready. Right? Like he needed at least half a season at AAA. And I stand by that, because he's a fraction of the guy that he could be. Now, on the flip side, Andrew Vaughn was a guy that got pushed up too early, and now he's like quietly one of the better players in the whole league, and no one's really talking about it, but he's been dynamite. I think he's hitting like 315 or 316 right now. And so, there's some of these guys that get pushed too quick. Like I thought Vargas was going to be that guy. I thought he was going to get pushed too quick. Dodgers have slowed it down. Same with Busch. He got moved really fast. I think Vargas is going to be the first man up, but both those guys could be relevant. Royce Lewis, we saw come up this year, another injury. That's unfortunate, but a guy to target, right? Like you and I talked about that before we jumped on, Robbie. Like Royce Lewis is now discount, right? He is now, what's the big daddy? When they smash the soup cans, is like, Microsoft dropped 4 points today, right? We, whatever. So Royce Lewis is that can of Alpha-Gettys or whatever it was. Like he is damaged goods and still has upside. We saw it in the brief window that he was in Minnesota. Josh Jung fits that category as well in Texas. He's the guy I'm chasing. I have him in a couple leagues, Robbie. I'm trying to acquire him wherever I don't own him already. This is a big time bat, in my opinion, and I want to own him wherever humanly possible. And the last guy on our list, a guy that I'm growing my shares of quickly, is Brayan Bello out of Boston. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I pretty much love everything Boston is doing from the prospect side of things right now. Everything they touch is gold right now. So I don't know where you're at on that one, Robbie. If you're any of those guys that you really, really like.
Well, with Bello specifically, like the pitch grades for him, 3 pitches, which already makes me wonder about the starter. He's got to be a really good location command guy, which very quickly just have a scouting check here is possibly the issue that he's going to run into. So at age 23, he only has 6 starts at AAA, I think, or 5, 11 on the year. 23 is young, by the way. I said only because he just got promoted. So 11 starts on the year, but 12 Ks per 9. Gotta love that. A 65% ground ball rate. Love that. Good signs, but I hate the Red Sox and I don't want anything good to happen to them or their players ever. So I don't want this to work out, but maybe it does. There's also a guy at AA who did not get promoted, might soon be promoted within the Red Sox. Chris Murphy, I think is his name. Somebody that I want to talk about in a future episode, who I think might be a very dominant lefty. He has been so far this year, just if he gets the promotion to see it keep coming. But yeah, the rest of the guys like Jung, we know Lewis is absolutely somebody to be concerned with. Prospect fatigue, all the things you want to say, but when he comes up, or when he came up this year, he did what he was supposed to do. So the patient dynasty owner just says, we'll take it and we'll see if he can come up and do that again when he's healthy. But it looks like we're going to be waiting more than likely to see full-time regular at bats until the second half of 2023. And that's a tough pill to swallow if you're paying a premium for him right now. So you might need to wait until your league's trade deadline, and then whoever has Lewis might need something that you are able to offer that could hopefully, get Lewis onto your lineup into the future. So, but it's a good list. It's a good list of the obvious targets. I think all of them are, well, they're obvious. And the rest of the guys, I think they all should be for your consideration. If you're in a league that allows you to pick up a prospect any day of the week, you probably have a smaller minor system, which means you need to set aside 3 or 4 spots for these type of streaming dudes. Or when you find out someone's been promoted, you go get them, because if you're not doing it, even if it's in like a 15 team league, someone else is, and they're going to be the ones that have the stacked teams. And they're then able to make those blockbuster trades where you're like, wait, they got that guy? When did they get that guy? And you look and see it was like, 2 months ago, because you haven't been listening to Dingers long enough, so you don't have them all. So I think that's a great start for AAA guys, but we're going to dive even deeper in future pods to lower levels.
Well, and that's it, right? And I think the key takeaway to kind of end off here, though, Robbie, is like, we talk about flipping your team around a lot tonight, but like, you're not going to do that at AAA, right? Like as a core. So like, here's some guys that you can target, but if you're in a rebuild mode, you need to think a little bit further down, because most good players aren't going to trade their on the cusp guys unless they're completely desperate to acquire whatever you have to offer them, right? So you're going to have to look a little further down the road. And that's why like even some of the guys on our list tonight aren't the obvious guys, because those obvious guys are probably untouchable in almost every format. Whereas, some of the guys we touched tonight, you might actually get. So just something to kind of look at. You're probably looking single A, double A. That's where you can really make your profit. A little more risk, a little more upside, but it's a great spot to leave it, Robbie. We'll cover a little bit more next week on some of this stuff, but until then, it's been Rob and Tyler here on Dingers.